When people use the word network marketing legend, I think too often they use those words loosely. It's like the word hero. It gets thrown around too often. And I will tell you that Mark Yarnell is one of those network marketing legends, one of those network marketing heroes. And it's going to be a straight talk tonight. We're going to get some nuggets here, but it's going to be very direct. So if you don't have a pen and paper, I would grab a pen and paper. And I believe this can be life-changing. I mean, here's a gentleman that has had a huge impact on my career, on the entire profession of network marketing. I think he probably was one of the very first authors ever to create a best-selling book, not just once, but multiple times within the network marketing profession, and so well he should. You know, having built organizations of over 300,000 people in 21 countries. He has spoken in North America and in Europe. In fact, I actually met him in Europe and very early in my career in the early 90s. He's also built in Asia. So this gentleman has literally built all over the world. He's a best-selling book, Your First Year in Network Marketing, and has earned well over $20 million in commission. So one of the most interesting, one of the most experienced, but one of the most direct speakers you're ever going to listen to. So Mark, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be on with us here tonight.
Well, no, hey, Garrett, thank you for having me. It's always good to meet up with you again. If I'm not mistaken, we met first in London, didn't we?
That is absolutely, you know, I even remember I was saying to you was what, Trish Durham, because I'm from Galway in the west of Ireland, and Trish was from Ireland as well, and that's exactly right. We met in London. Isn't that crazy?
Well, it's an honor to work with you again, you know, it really is. And so anything I can do, especially I want to echo something you said, Garrett, because this is an industry of many, many millions of people, and one legitimate organization calculated to improve it, and that's Networking Times, Networking University. I've known Chris and Josephine for so many years, and it's been fun to, it's a little bit disconcerting that they're it, only because I thought by now other people would have figured out and jumped on the bandwagon, but maybe that's just a tribute to their success, that people are afraid they can't even compete with their expertise. But they're the couple, and you're the people who have done what should have been done all along for many, many years, and that is hold their head high and extol the virtues of the industry. So anytime I get a chance to work with an old buddy from London and a couple like Chris and Josephine, it's really all my honor. So anyway, thanks for having me.
Well, you're more than welcome. And, you know, let's start right there. The profession of network marketing, when you know, you and I were just talking about it. You're 28 years in network marketing. I'm almost 25 years. I've never had a job. I came straight out of college into network marketing. I would love you to give a 28-year perspective and tell people why, particularly in today's economy, whether you're a college student, which I was, or a career professional, or a company or business owner, or someone who's close to or already in retirement, why network marketing? Why today? Why is it such a mission for us to go out and share this, and what do we have to offer?
Well, I think the main thing is to look at it from a historical perspective and understand this is not a new thing. As far as I'm concerned, way back in 1886, and you mentioned I taught at the University of Illinois, and that was a real honor to do that. One of my courses, one of my modules in that program was a historical analysis of the industry, beginning with Avon in 1886. A lot of people don't realize that back then it was called the California Perfume Company, but that was really the first considered networking company because it paid on multiple levels. Throughout the evolution of our industry, even though in the early days there were only a handful of companies, it has progressively grown into what I consider to be more and more of an equitable method of capitalism. And by that, and I know, Garrett, I know I'm singing to the choir, you and I, we both know the same thing, but for the new people that happen to be listening on the call tonight, it's real imperative that people understand this is the most respectable element of capitalism as far as I'm concerned. This is the last bastion of legitimate capitalism, where we can take common people without a special degree, without any experience, without any special skills, without a long track record of success in free enterprise, and we can allow them in 4 years to do what the majority of people can't do in 40, because we're on the 4-year plan known as compound capitalism. What I try to get people to understand is this has always been a viable option, and what you're alluding to, I totally agree with, Garrett. Right now, as people become more and more uncertain, about their assets and what's going to happen to the global economic picture over the next years is very volatile. There's never been a better time for network marketing, simply because, first of all, a lot of people don't have any options anymore. They've been outsourced or laid off or downsized, and so bottom line, these jobs aren't coming back. We're not going to reindustrialize. There's never going to be a time, and I read a lot of the great economics professors and a lot of the great business leaders, there's never going to be a time in the future when all of a sudden we reindustrialize and we have new plants and facilities. And the reason for that is in global economics, there's always another third world country where labor is willing to do it for 10% of what we are. So it's irrational to think we're going to change back to an industrial. We're not. It's not happening. And as far as the people who believe there's going to be an opportunity in the technology world, I would beg them to understand that when Instagram put Kodak out of business, they had 100,000 families that depended on their income at Kodak. Instagram put them out of business, and when they sold out to Facebook for $1 billion, there were only 15 employees. So if people think that there's going to be a mad rush into the IT world and to make money, they're nuts. The purpose of the IT world is to socialize the risks and privatize the profits. You notice every company is getting shrinking and smaller and smaller and smaller. So, sorry to kickstart my mouth, Garrett, but I have never believed there was a better time in the history of capitalism than right now. But what I want people to know, this has been a respectable industry since 1886. Don't believe for 1 minute that this is not the last legitimate bastion of capitalism. I can take an average person in 4 years to a monthly income that most medical doctors don't make in an entire year, and I can show them how to back off from work in 4 years and spend the quality time with the people they love. Well, that's great. That's phenomenal. So it's a remarkable industry, and more specific to your question, it's the perfect time to get involved, in my opinion. And I'd debate that issue with anybody, Garrett. I know I'm right about that. People are too scared.
I agree, and you've got all the evidence to prove it. I mean, if you look back in your career over 28 years, you could look at the literally thousands or even tens and hundreds of thousands of people whose lives you've positively impacted, and then when you look at the relationships you have with other top distributors, company owners, you know that to be true. Why don't you just share, just a couple of stories. I know we don't mention any companies' names or names of distributors, but give a sense for how diverse the backgrounds have been of people that you have really helped to achieve the type of incomes that people perhaps are looking for, or maybe even lifestyles that people are looking for, maybe even security that people are looking for.
That may be the funnest question to answer of all, because there's such a diversity. I'll tell you an interesting story. When I got to the point where I was making over $100,000 a month, I got the wild idea that it would be pretty easy to create a profile of great people that would be good prospects for the company and for building business. And my theory was this: why couldn't I pay a bunch of clinical psychologists or psychology students, which I ended up using, psychology students, UC Davis. What we put together was a questionnaire. My idea was, if I take my top 100 people and I give them a 50 to 100 person questionnaire that develops a profile of who and what they are, then if we can take the spikes out of this personality and create a picture, an image of who would be a perfect prospect. These are the 100 people who are earning the most money in my organization. Let's profile them, and then we'll know how to go after people and who to profile. Guess what? I spent $28,000 setting up a test. I had a bunch of students set it up. We worked through all kinds of psychological. They used offshoots of the Minnesota personality, whatever that's called. All these tests. I'm no academic, but it was very well designed. We gave it out. There was not one anomaly. There wasn't one feature that jumped out that we could look for in prospects. except there was a little bit of a spike in teachers and police officers. For some reason, teachers and police officers tend to make a little bit more money than other professions, but it was a very marginal, tiny difference. What shocked me when the smoke cleared in my business, and I'll mention Nu Skin. Everybody knows I was with Nu Skin for 12 years, greatest company I've ever been. Wonderful company. I learned everything from Nu Skin, and then I sold my organization, and they were always very fair and ethical to me. But what was wonderful is when I looked back from the posture of success, from being a Hawaiian Blue Diamond, at all the leaders in my company, all the people that I'd brought in and others had brought in, the people who were responsible for 90% of my check were a hit-and-run detective, a school dropout, and a maid. Now, I signed up the mayor of Austin, Texas, Ron Mullen, into Nu Skin. Right when I got involved, I signed up one of the best NFL players. I mean, I signed up some real heavy players, medical doctors, lawyers, CPAs, bankers. One really big banker in Houston came on board. We had the guy that had Transco Towers in Houston. I mean, we had some players. But it was a hit-and-run detective and a high school dropout and a maid who made me all my money. Now, I also signed up the #1 sales rep for Xerox, and she did well. But she didn't even account for a fraction of what the police officer did. So I guess the way I'm responding to your question, Gary, and I like it so much, is I want people to understand, don't play God. Don't decide that you can qualify prospects when you're out recruiting. When you look back on this industry from a perspective of success, you will be absolutely flabbergasted. The people that you think will do it, many of them won't, and the people that you don't think have a snowball's chance will make themselves, their families, and you wealthy. It's a very diverse field. And I know, Garrett, you've probably seen that same thing. I just don't see any typical profiles of successful people that you can hang your hat on. Have you?
Well, I remember one that you shared. Let me share what it is because it'll spark a big one in you. You said they all found a goal bigger than themselves. Do you remember that?
Absolutely. And you know what? That is one of the criteria. You know what I've discovered over the years? I've discovered that most people are not pathologically greedy. And by that I mean, and that's a good thing, most people have core values beyond what they realize. Oh, at a cocktail party or a church function, they'll talk about their dreams and their dream car and their dream vacation and the boat they'd have and maybe even a small airplane. But bottom line, most people are not inherently greedy. So when you bring them into a business with the potential for them to earn $2 or $3 or $4 or $500,000 a month, it doesn't make sense to most people unless they have an objective that is bigger than themselves. So, I mean, if you're making $20,000, $30,000 a month, you can have a hot tub and a Lexus or a Beamer. If you're making $40,000, $50,000 a month, you can build your dream home, probably get a little boat, everything you want. Let me tell you something, my friend. Having done it, you get up to $150,000, $200,000, $250,000 a month consistently, there's no way you can spend that. And there's no reason to make that much unless you want to equip a homeless shelter in your community. Where's your passion? You know, do you want to put clothing and make clothing available for battered women who bring their babies whose husbands are drunks and beat them up, and they go to the shelter and they need clothing and pillows and bedding, and they got these kids scared to death? If that's your passion, great. You want to teach felons how to deliver and construct professional quality speeches? You got a soft place in your heart for these poor jerks that get hammered for a little joint of marijuana when it's legal to carry an assault weapon into a church where your ex-girlfriend is marrying your best friend? That's not illegal. But if you get caught with a joint out in the woods in Texas, you're going to do time. You know, the system has gotten completely wacko and completely crazy, in my opinion. And yet there's one beam of hope left for the average person who's not greedy, and that is this affords us the opportunity to have the money and the freedom to make a difference on planet Earth. I believe, let me tell you what I really think. I really believe that our reason for being here, our motive should be to become the best possible version of ourselves that we can. My goal is to become the best version of Mark Yarnell possible. And to do that, I've got to use all my talent, create as much wealth as I can, and then share it with people, because that's not only the right thing to do, it's also the fun thing. So what I always tell new people, if you don't have a real reason to make $100,000 a month, you won't, because you're probably not greedy enough and you don't need that. So figure out your passion. I don't care if it's animals that have been abandoned or people that are in jail for stupid stuff that you want to counsel. Make a plan. Maybe you want to go to the old folks. Do you realize that 75% of the people that are over age 80 that live in retirement homes, many of whom, by the way, are quite lucid, have nobody left on planet Earth? They don't have any kids. All their friends are dead. They have nobody to visit them. How would you like to spend your last 5 years with a fine brain and a capacity to love and a few wrinkles with nobody on planet Earth willing to sit down and hug you or talk to you? So maybe your passion is creating a group of people or joining a group of people who just go adopt elderly people who don't have anybody. My point is this. When you're making $100,000 a month and you're at home, you can do anything you want to make the world a better place. But you aren't going to do that because you're not greedy unless you've got a goal bigger than yourself. So thank you. You are absolutely right. That brings up such a vision for me of what has meant so much to so many people. So thanks a lot for bringing that up, Gary. I really appreciate it.
Well, Mark, it was you that thought it really made such a difference to me, which was exactly that, to start asking myself the question, what is that goal that's bigger than myself, and helping other people find this, because that becomes the mission. And, you know, one of the things that I love about you, Mark, and some of the many things, many people, which are very plain-spoken, very direct and straight to the point. And you talk about there are some basic skills that people just have to do in order to be successful. So let's maybe just talk about one or two of those things. You know, you talk about, I've heard you say, you know, about having a prospect list, making it a big list, and, you know, keep creating it, and learning to contact and invite people in the daily method of operation. Those are 2 or 3 things we just mentioned there, but I know you're a person that really helps people understand you got to do the basics, you got to do them well, and you got to do them often. Do you want to talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, and you know, my wife and I were just discussing this over supper. Valerie said, you know, one of the things you want to always clarify, because in your book, you know, one of your books you talk about, and not the one that Valerie and I wrote together, a different one, but in one of the books I talk about how I don't believe in duplication. I think it's a myth. I believe in exploitation, helping people exploit their talents and skills. And she was pointing out something absolutely accurate. When I say that, sometimes people think that I don't understand that this all falls within a step-by-step framework. On the one hand, we believe in the duplication of the process of, you know, exposing people to the industry and to our opportunity, presenting, expose, present, validate, enroll, support. There are 5 steps you're going through no matter what. So we actually duplicate a process up front. We help them get, we make sure they get their top 40. You know, we want you to make your list of your top 40 people that you want to help and you want to have in your organization. From there, we expand out and make it bigger. We give them concepts, ways to approach people that really put big money and free time out there and are provocative questions that will force people to wake up from their stupor. If you're going to get people's attention, you're not going to get it by saying, well, I think I found a little part-time business. How would you like to earn an extra $500 a month without ever jeopardizing whatever you're doing part-time by being a connector? You forget it. It's over. You just blew them off. And if they're so stupid they join after an approach like that, you don't want them anyway. They can't do the deal. So you've got to hit people with provocative stuff. It's all about approach, approach, approach. What I mean by exploitation of talents, just to be more specific about that, is once we teach people the fundamentals, we honor their strategy within the bundle of that fundamental. So, for example, if we're talking about what's the best way to approach people? Well, some people like to walk and talk and hand out business cards. Some people really enjoy using the internet, and they're expert at it. They know how to, you know, optimize their search engines. They've got great back office drip system, all the technical stuff that really works. They love that. Other people absolutely love to get on the telephone and smile and dial. All the, 30 people a day. They just go. So what we honor is a person's skill set that they most enjoy, because we found if they're enjoying it, they're probably going to stick with it. So our objective is always to teach people, here are the 5 steps you're going through. Whether you're in a skincare deal or a utility deal or a juice deal, it doesn't matter. You're going to expose people right up front. In some way, you got to tweak their interest. Then you're going to present the whole opportunity if the exposure step interested them. Then you're going to validate yourself by getting a 3-way going with your upline. That's the way we believe you should do it. Bring your upline on to tag team with you, and then step 4 is enroll, step 5 is support. But among those different steps, we give our people the freedom to exploit their own joys and talents and, skill sets and competencies, things that they like to do. I think where people get into trouble is either A, they create a one-size-fits-all training process and expect to shove all their people down into it in spite of their personalities. It doesn't work that way. That's why I don't believe in duplication. I think you've got to allow people to use the things that work for them. I think that's really, really critical. That's the main thing I wanted to say about that. We do duplicate a specific format that's very important. So we give people a paint-by-number system, but we also honor their ability to use different terminologies. Now, there's one exception I want to say here, one statement I want to make that not everybody's going to agree with me. I believe most people are basically cognitively lazy. Well, I know they are. Our brain weighs, it's 5% of our body weight, but it uses 20 to 30% of all of the energy that we intake through our fuel, the food we eat. Well, that's pretty significant. To think all day long requires 25 to 30% of all of the caloric intake. That's how much your brain burns in energy. So over the years, we have very skillfully developed this process of what I call heuristics, little bogus arguments to protect us from having to think deep. Because the deeper we have to think about something, the more energy we're going to use. And that's not evolutionary sensible. Whether you think we were put on this earth 6,000 years ago or 60 million, I care less. What I'm saying is, over the last thousands of years, we've evolved the process of conserving caloric usage in terms of brain power. So when you approach somebody with a stupid approach or one that's not really, I shouldn't say stupid, that sounds disparaging, I don't mean that. When you approach people with an unworkable approach that's not exciting or passionate, they're not going to think about it. They're going to bring up a little heuristic, which is a stereotypical red flag they've learned from mom and dad and carried through their life. Oh no, Garrett, this is one of them pyramids. Or you're talking to a doctor. Oh, no, I've got an Aunt Mildred. She's got a garage full of that crap. This is one of those pyramid schemes. No. So you're going to run into those heuristics, which are nothing but bogus objections and arguments to protect the prospect from having to burn energy actually thinking for himself or herself. How do you get around that? You have to have a conscious shock of some kind. There has to be a precipitating event that forces this person to go, oh my God, I better think about this. I like big money and free time. So one of the things I teach people is, I don't care how you go about it. I don't care how, as long as you approach 20, 30 people a day, you can do it by phone, you can do it, I don't care how you do it. But when you get in front of those people, in any method, in any strategy, well, I mean, whether you're using the phone or the internet, doesn't matter to me. When you get in front of a prospect, you make absolutely certain that you use provocative terminology that's calculated to force them to think, to go deep inside this, to go to a website, to listen to to see what you've got. And if you do not use a conscious shock, they will not even look at your company. So that's the main thing that I want people to understand. You've got to be provocative, but other than that, we give people the freedom to do it the way they want to. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on too long there.
No, it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, Mark, one of the things I remember, because I knew one of your partners that you were working with in London when you were launching the business, and they spoke to how you talked about it doesn't matter how much you do in one day, the key is consistency every day. And you insisted upon, and I know this sounds like such a fundamental and rudimentary thing, but this person was actually a professional network marketer who didn't have a calendar. And you were one of those people that goes, show me your calendar and I'll show you how successful you're going to be. Speak to that a little bit about, you talk about consistency, having a daily method of operation and how important that is.
Well, one of the things that we worked with Chris and Josephine on this whole idea of the Lotus Code strategy was fascinating for us in terms of work, largely because we learned from an old Eastern mystical code, really, and it's also repeated in Christianity of all things, but the whole idea that there's a kind of a fulcrum, there's kind of a teeter-totter of attributes that and strategies and steps you go through to reach fulfillment. And it all begins with kind of, you think about it, and then the next segment along the teeter-totter, thoughts lead to words, and words lead to actions. When actions become habitual, then perseverance is a non-issue. I mean, you slide right now. If you imagine a teeter-totter, now imagine the fulcrum position right in between actions and habits. So on the far end of the teeter-totter on the left, you've got thoughts. Next to those, up about a foot, you've got words, because now you're talking about your motives and your ideas. You go up to fairly close to the fulcrum position. You've got actions, and then you've got the middle balance fulcrum position. And on the equal distance from that on the right end of the teeter-totter is basically where we move from action to habits, because we repeat our actions so many days they become habitual. Now here's what's interesting, Garrett, always has been to us, ever since we learned this. Once the teeter-totter tips to the right, once you get past the fulcrum between actions and habits, where you're actually applying this for, say, 10 days or 20 or 30 days, depending on your own repetition needs, once your activities become habitual, it's like a buttered slide on the teeter-totter. From then on, you slide right down through perseverance to attainment. It's not difficult. You persevere because your activities become absolutely repetitive and habitual. So if you work long enough at talking to 10 or 20 or 30 people a day, it'll be very painful initially. I talked to a guy today who was just on the verge of tears, and he said, Yarnell, I can't make myself. This morning I went out to the mall and I couldn't talk to anybody, and I stopped at the gas station. Why am I so scared? And I said, Artie, I don't know. I was out at the mall about a week ago, and I saw a guy standing in line at the lottery desk thing, wearing a Rolex watch, and I knew these were Johnson Murphy shoes, very expensive, and I was right behind him, and I didn't capped him for like 2 or 3 minutes in a line. I was watching him, and he was in line to play the lotto, and I was just standing behind him assessing his value as a prospect. And you know what happened to me, Artie? No, what? I got scared and left. And on the way home, I was thinking, my God, Yarnell, you've been in the business 28 years. You're always telling people how to do it. You're the big stud who can approach anybody. How come you sissify out every once in a while? So I said, Artie, what you need to understand is fear of rejection is a phobia that we all have, and you never outlive it. It's just that for the most part, when you practice it enough, it becomes more habitual. That doesn't mean you're going to be able to just waltz through life talking to everybody you bump into. I have my occasional bouts with call reluctance, and I've been in the business quite a while. So that's just human nature. See, what you want to do is develop the habit by going out and repeating it over and over and over. Approach 10 people, approach 20 people, approach 30 people. Won't be easy. But after a month of doing that, it'll become so habitual you'll feel like you didn't go to the gym. It's like if you really become a hard workout person who every day or every other day sticks to a routine and it becomes habitual, you'll feel bad if you miss a week. Same thing in prospecting. If you're talking to 20 people a day, 5 days a week, and then on Wednesday of the second week you miss it, you will actually feel like you've missed something. So my point is, go out, make it habitual. That's what I think Gary meant by the calendar. I can tell you whether you're going to be successful. I can tell you why you weren't successful yesterday just based on the number of people you talked to. And if you only talk to 4 or 5 people, that's crazy. You've got to talk to significant numbers of people, and you've got to hit them with big money and free time. Those are the shocking questions you got to ask them. But that's what I always taught people, Garrett. Your effort will defeat almost every other form of sales. If you just go out and make the effort, you cannot say the wrong thing to the right person. Well, Mark, but you can't say the right thing to the wrong person. So you just get out and talk to a whole lot of people. The right people will get it, right?
Without a doubt. But Mark, you and Valerie are great mentors, you're great coaches, you're great people to work together with. What expectations do you have for someone that you're going to personally work with